Hey guys, welcome to Small Town Girl. Today we're going to be visiting with my friend Corrie Radtke, who is a former missionary, kind of done some of the same things I've done with revisiting, renovating, deconstructing the faith of her youth. We met in Arkansas and she lived here a long time, but she's recently moved away and left me. She's in South Carolina now, but she came back to visit and to be on this podcast, and I'm so grateful to her. So welcome, Corrie Radtke.
Thank you.
And let's just get right into it. Southern Loft believes that your home should reflect your unique personality. That's why they offer a wide variety of stylish furniture pieces that are perfect for any taste. Whether you're looking for a new sofa for your living room or a sleek dining table for your kitchen, they have just what you need. So when looking for that piece of furniture that reflects you, visit Southern Loft at 3155 North College in Fayetteville or call at 479-856-6100. I think I want to start with how we met, but then we'll go back and kind of, I just want you to kind of tell your story so that listeners can understand your background and then kind of the trajectory of this faith renovation. So Corrie and I met living both in Ozark, which is my hometown. She moved there to live on a YWAM base, and YWAM stands for Youth with a Mission. It's a missions organization. I think the central headquarters, or it started here in Elm Springs, didn't it? Elm Springs, Arkansas? Or is there just a base here?
There's a base. There was a base here early on. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So I can't claim credit for it starting here, but...
I think it kind of technically started in California.
Okay. All right. So she and her husband, Torsten, and their family moved to Ozark to be a part of YWAM there at the base in Ozark. And we didn't know each other for a good while. We had some kids who were in like the same grades in school, and we ran into each other at the high school. Our daughters were both presenting something, I think, for a history project.
It was a history project, and they were both they were doing similar things.
Okay.
And they were right next to each other.
Yeah. And they're both pretty creative, a little bit outside the box kind of thinkers. And so we met and we just kind of hit it off. And I remember for me thinking like, gosh, I wish, how have I not met this person, you know, because a lot of times I feel, I don't know, kind of isolated in different ways, living in my hometown. Sometimes just a little bit of an outlier, you know, spiritually and intellectually, politically, all those things. And we just kind of clicked, even though we didn't talk about anything deep.
Yeah.
But the cutest thing and the funnest thing, and really now, like knowing you all these years now, I can't believe you did this, because I would normally be more the one to do this because she's like pretty reserved and I don't know, just more quiet and private like than me. But she sent me a Facebook message and it said something like, I've still got it, I could just pull it up and read it, but it said something like, I hope you don't think this is weird, but would you like to be my friend, or something like that? And I was like, I don't think that's weird at all. Yes, you know. And then you had me over to your house.
Yeah, you came over for coffee and stayed, what was it, like 5 hours?
I think so.
Yeah.
I made myself right at home in your Papa's on chair.
You did.
And you had good coffee, which is hard to come by in Ozark.
Yeah.
And we just kind of opened up our hearts, and that was a starting place. And then for the next decade, we what we did, which is kind of a cool metaphor, I think, for our friendship, is we walked almost every day. So readers and a lot of my audience know that I live like way out in the boonies and have these trails on our ranch. And Corey has these 2 dogs. I almost said crazy dogs, but really only one of them's crazy.
Yeah.
And Cleo, and she inherited them from her children, like I've inherited many of my dogs. And but the responsibility fell to her to walk them. They lived in a neighborhood, so she would love to bring her dogs up to walk with my dogs and me on these trails because she didn't have to leash them or worry about them. And I loved that so much because I could basically just get up when she was on her way and walk out my door in my pajamas, rain or shine, with Corey. And, oh, gosh, when she moved, it's been
a year and a half.
Yeah, it'll be 2 years in August.
Yeah.
Really, I have not recovered since then. I have not been near as good or faithful of a walker. Anyway, I just also really miss her. But we're very determined to keep in touch. So that's our background. But Corrie, you tell listeners, share as much of your background as you feel comfortable, but how you were raised, where you lived, and how you came to be a missionary with YWAM.
Okay. First, though, I just have to say that all those hours of walking and conversation were just precious.
Yeah.
Just not something I would have wanted to miss ever.
Me either.
And I miss it still, too.
We went many a mile, didn't we?
Many a mile and many a subject covered.
Yes.
So,
I'm very grateful.
Yeah,
to
me too.
Oh.
Okay, well, I was born in Tampa and raised in a very charismatic household.
Okay.
So, my early childhood was full of church services and Christian meetings. There was a lot of speaking in tongues, dancing in church, but there was also in the charismatic movement. There was also it was more egalitarian than a lot of evangelical.
Interesting. Okay.
So men and women were at least outwardly were seen as equals.
Okay.
And a lot of years were spent in a church community where there was no pastor, there was no nobody was in charge of anything, music, nothing. Just if somebody felt led to sing a song, they sang a song and everybody joined in. And if someone felt like they had a message, then they spoke.
Okay.
So that was early childhood.
Was that a denomination or just
No.
Okay.
Very, very non-denominational.
Okay.
Yes.
But not evangelical, non-denominational, not like the Fellowship Bible
No.
churches, which I kind of think of as just
Yeah.
like almost very similar, like to Southern Baptist.
Yes.
But this was charismatic, so you're thinking
Yes.
kind of Pentecostally, Assembly of God.
Kind of. Kind of. Yes.
Okay.
They were really very. Keep in mind, I was a child.
Mm-hmm.
So, in my understanding, they were very concentrated on what does the Bible say about what church is supposed to be like.
Okay.
And trying to do that. So it had more. It may have had more of a feel of a house church.
Okay.
And actually, a lot of meetings were held at my grandparents' house.
Okay.
So there was less structure, more freedom. Mm-hmm. And we were really encouraged as children to participate in all of it.
Okay.
And as we grew up, we were given, of course, the same thing as you, the Bible verses to memorize and the more responsibility. And it's interesting. I think I was really raised very intentionally to know the Bible and to live by it.
Yes.
Even if that looked different than what other churches were doing and other groups.
Okay. So what's like an example of how that looked different, in your community?
Well, for instance, those meetings that happened at my grandparents' house when I was very young, there was a real emphasis on having people from all denominations in that. So I didn't know it at the time, but now I'm told that there were Catholic nuns that came for a while, or just people from very different backgrounds.
Interesting. So kind of a ecumenical vision.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
And then it gradually morphed into something closer to mainstream.
Okay.
But my mom once sprained her ankle dancing in church. So that's,
Like you do. Okay.
As you do. Yeah.
Okay. So, Corrie, was this sort of like, this was a movement,
Yes.
and I wasn't aware of it when I was a kid, but I think I've read some things about, was this like part of the Jesus people?
I think it came out of that.
Okay.
And some of the, possibly one of the more recognizable names from it is Derek Prince. Derek and Ruth Prince were very, okay, wait, he had another wife at the beginning.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
I've not heard of them, but it's this kind of Christian, kind of hippie,
Yes.
charismatic, movement.
Very much focused on hearing God's word, knowing God's word, and hearing the voice of God in a personal way.
Okay.
So.
All right.
Yeah.
So
that was early childhood.
Yeah.
And when I was, 11 or 12, my parents got into mission work. They started doing trips, and that got them interested in doing that full time.
Okay.
So when I was 13, sorry, it's a longer story, but when I was 13, they decided to do a discipleship training school, which is the entry-level course to get if you want to be involved in Youth with a Mission.
Right, DTS.
DTS.
Okay. Well, how did they get hooked up with Youth with a Mission? Is that like ancillary to this movement, or?
Yes, I think. Again,
or just they met some people.
We were at a church service at a church that we didn't normally go to, and there were people from YWAM who had a booth set up at the back of this church. It must have been some kind of event.
Okay.
And they found the information there and thought it looked interesting, and they had just gotten a pop-up camper and decided that we were going to spend the whole summer as a family traveling in the West together. And our first stop, because they saw it in these pamphlets, was a Go Fest in Texas. And that was several days long. We camped and went to worship services and rallies and concerts and things like that, and that was kind of their start.
And was it like charismatic, like what you were used to, or?
There wasn't. There was less dancing to worship music and speaking in tongues, but there was a very strong emphasis on God speaking personally to people.
Okay.
So some of it was familiar, some of it was less familiar.
Yeah.
The rock music was new-ish for me. So that was interesting. And the more casual approach was probably new, but also the missions emphasis
Okay.
was new. So, and then they, after that, they did some research and sent off applications. There were 4 of us kids, so it was hard for them to find a space for 6 people.
Mm-hmm.
And we ended up in Hawaii at a Crossroads Discipleship Training School. Like I said, I was 13, and
That must have felt like such an adventure.
it did. It was amazing.
I mean, moved to Hawaii.
Yeah. We got there on New Year's Eve, and there were, I don't know if you've ever been in Hawaii for New Year's Eve, but it was loud and exuberant.
Mm-hmm.
And as a 13-year-old, I thought it was awesome.
So you're the oldest kid in your family.
I'm the second.
You're the second. And so the ages are what? 15, 13.
Jen turned 15 while we were there.
Mm-hmm.
And Seth was 10, and Lindsay must have been 7 or 8.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, it was really courageous of my parents to do that,
Mm-hmm.
to just leave their lives behind.
Yes.
And with 4 kids.
And so you moved in on this base?
It was a satellite housing thing
Okay.
for the base. And we were there for 3 months,
Mm-hmm.
and then spent 2 months traveling in Asia, where we would do, the kids mostly did song and dance, and the adults would come and give testimonies and do the whole evangelism thing.
Yes.
And we went all over Asia. I turned 14 in Singapore. And it was, the whole experience was, a mixture like anything else. But it was what our lives were.
Yeah.
And that was our introduction to YWAM. And then my parents then joined YWAM staff with King's Kids, which is it's the branch of YWAM that has to do with children, not ministering to children, but getting children out on the mission field, basically.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so what's school look like?
Oh, during the DTS, school was, we were given homeschooling materials and put together in loose age groupings. So the 12-year-olds and up were all together in one place, and the younger ones were somewhere else.
Okay.
And we did our schoolwork, and then they had like a mini DTS, they called it. Mm-hmm. So we got the same kinds of teachings as our parents, just more aimed at kids.
And then as you grew, like, did you go to a normal high school, or
I
was
spent
that always
1 year my 10th grade year was in a small Christian school that was pretty much a disaster. It doesn't exist anymore. Didn't exist for very long.
How was it a disaster?
So many things. It turned out there was some corruption at the top, and so the education level was, as always, dependent on the teacher that they had hired. Mm-hmm. So some of them were excellent, and some were dialing it in. Mm-hmm. And but the leadership, the whole climate of the school was bad.
Okay.
And my 10th grade class was not a healthy situation. there was a lot of drugs and yeah, I was one of two people on the one field trip that we had that year. I was one of two people in my class that didn't drop acid. So,
Wow.
yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah. I don't know if we want to keep that in.
Well, that's just interesting as an aside, because, I'm always walking this line in my work, because I love and respect so many people who go to private school, who teach in private schools, who, are in administration, even some, friends who homeschool. I know that those can be like great options and great institutions. I don't believe tax dollars should pay for it, but I do know that, there's some great value there. And then I also just nearly every rock I turn over, there's a horror story like that. And most recently, I've been kind of obsessed with all this Epstein stuff, trying to sort it out. And did you know that his first job, so he went to college for 2 years and dropped out, and then he got a job as a teacher in a private school, like this elite private school. It's how he ended up making a ton of his connections with all these, ultra rich people. But, I mean, he was a college dropout, and he got a job teaching at this private school.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, how does that happen?
Yeah. That I didn't know that, but it actually explains a lot.
Tracks, yeah, it really does. I mean, I'm writing a column about it right now, just trying to kind of sort out some things and map some things, because, of course, all the information for me is just so overwhelming. But anyway, that was one of the sort of facts that stood out to me. But
there's less oversight, and therefore there's more corruption.
Yeah, or at least there's more opportunity. Yeah,
for corruption.
Definitely. And we have enough corruption when there is oversight, but
absolutely.
But yeah, it is.
Yeah.
So all right, so
there was that 1 year of private Christian school, and otherwise I was homeschooled in high school. Homeschooled or at correspondence, however you want to.
So what was going on, like, inside of you, as far as, because, like, one of the differences I can already see between, like, our story or our stories is if someone asks me and I start to tell about my background, my faith background particularly, like, I mean, I definitely inherited it from my parents, but I made a very personal decision, and commitment to a personal relationship with Jesus when I was little, and it, I still, like, that stuck. Like, I still have that in the midst of all, the layers and trying to do away with the things that would cloud that, or the purity of that. I still, like, that is where one of my anchors is, or really, I guess, the anchor from which everything else sort of flows, is that personal relationship. And, from the time I was little. So where were you, personally, or did you make a distinction between, like, this is what I personally believe and where I personally am, and this is where my family is? Or was it just kind of like, were you on board? Were you not on board?
I was a kid, so it varied.
Okay.
I also made that personal decision at a very young age.
Okay.
Was baptized at, I think, 6.
Mm-hmm, me too.
In the lake behind my grandparents' house.
Mm-hmm.
And
was it real for you, or was it like something, you know, because I know even a lot of, like, my friends, you know, later felt like that they just kind of were performing this ritual that was like just what you do in that church or in the family, and then later they looked back and but I you know, I don't feel that way about my experience.
For me, it's hard to judge some things. I can barely remember that decision.
Okay.
I can remember, and this might have been my first experience of doubt. I can remember being in Sunday school, very young, around the same time that I was baptized, probably shortly after. And two people came into the Sunday school class, and they prayed for us to receive the gift of tongues.
Oh, okay.
I think it was because we had all been baptized, and so it was time for us to be baptized in the Holy Spirit.
Yes.
And so they went around the circle, and I can still remember all the little shoes in a circle, and prayed for us one at a time. And I remember the shoes because I was looking down the whole time. And I was uncomfortable with them standing that close to me and their hands on me, which was, it was what I had grown up with. That was how you prayed for people. But it was a lot of focus on me. And so when they were praying for me and they had their hands on me, I was uncomfortable. And I remember waiting for something to happen. And nothing happened. And I knew they would just keep praying for me until something happened.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And so I just said something nonsense to make it go away.
Wow.
And I remember after that thinking, every time somebody was praying in tongues, thinking, are they just doing what I did? Is that all it is?
Did you ever ask anybody? Were you ever close enough to someone, like, to ask that question?
I think I did. And it was, I mean, I know it was very real for my parents.
Okay.
And so if it was them that I asked, then it was very real for them. And there were some other experiences where it became clear that somebody had been just putting it on. And so that kind of reinforced my feeling of who's real and who's not.
Yes. That's a difficult position to be in.
Yeah.
You know, as you're trying to figure out your life.
Yeah.
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 I mean, this is kind of silly maybe, but, you know, I was in Mexico a couple of weeks ago, and we went to Chichen Itza, and we had a guide, Miguel, who was very patient with me as I was asking all these questions. And one of the questions I asked him was, like, how do you feel about the police in your country? You know, because you just read all kinds of things. And he said some of the police are good and some of the police are bad, and you don't ever know which one you're encountering. Yeah. And so I just try to stay away from them completely. And I just thought, wow, you know, it's almost like all of them might as well be bad if you don't know.
Yeah, if you can't trust.
Right. And so, you know, it's kind of like, as you're looking to who do I believe, who do I trust, and you're not sure.
Yeah. But, I mean, growing up, I was very much, like, there was that fear of hell. And the need for belonging.
Yes.
And those were probably two of the biggest drivers. The need for belonging, and also it wasn't just fear of hell for me, but if I'm not doing the right thing, if I'm not reaching out to the right people, then what I was taught was they would go to hell.
Yeah.
And so it was my responsibility to
responsible.
make sure. Yes.
Yes.
And so at that Go Fest, and when I was 13, one of the big things at one of the big youth rallies that I was at, there was somebody there talking about how you're either a missionary or a mission field. And that made me really want to be that missionary.
Well, sure. If it's one or the other.
Yeah, exactly. If there's that dichotomy, then I know where I'm going to follow.
Right. Yeah.
So that really stuck with me over the next years, where I wanted to be that person who was portraying Jesus to the world.
Yes.
To save the world.
I definitely felt some of that urgency too. I remember taking my little Bible to elementary school and, you know, converting some of my peers, you know, and just laboring over their souls. And, you know, I look back at that sometimes and I don't know what to do with that person who I was. You know, there's a sense of just I don't know what it is. Embarrassment. There's a sense though too of just bless her heart, you know, and
absolutely.
like, gosh, that's a lot of responsibility for a fifth grader to feel, you know.
Exactly.
And then there's like a built-in arrogance to it that I hate. Yeah. You know, I certainly didn't see it as that at the time, but it's kind of the same thing now as, you know, after studying a lot of the effects of like missionary work around the world on other cultures, and you know that people were sincerely, some of them at least, like you, for example, in more modern times even, you know, trying to save people. Yeah. And yet so much of that was so destructive and so just misplaced, misdirected.
Yes.
So
there's a lot of pressure.
Yes.
In some areas of the church to be that.
Yes.
When I was I think I was 15 when I got to be part of a course called School of Frontier Missions. And it was all about going to the places where nobody's ever heard the gospel and sharing the gospel.
Unreached people groups.
Yes.
Yes, I've heard those terms.
Yes. And there was so much urgency to it that I literally asked my parents if I could just quit school and start because we need to do this.
Yes.
You know, these people are dying.
And was the urgency that Jesus couldn't come back until all these people
there
were
was
reached?
That too.
Because I remember hearing that somewhere along the way, that it was like after the gospel is spread to all the world, or, you know, every nation and tongue, that will sort of like catalyze the second coming.
Yes, there was that, but that was more of a deterrent for me.
Oh,
okay. I was always afraid of the second coming.
Okay.
I didn't want it to happen. I felt like I had so much life to live.
Yes, yes.
And so that was That was kind of terrifying for me. But on the other hand, there were these people who were supposedly dying and going to hell because they didn't know.
Yeah, never heard.
Yeah. And I mean, you know, you probably heard all the songs in that era about how will they know, you
Yes.
know, what if they never hear? And so that to me was that idea was unsustainable. And so I wanted to get out there.
Yes.
What was I doing? Sitting in school learning these stupid things.
The equations and things like that.
Yes, exactly.
Right.
You know, what use is that if there are people dying
Yes.
and going to hell?
Yes.
So, yeah, that's a little of my early years.
Okay. Okay. So you graduate. You're not allowed to go save the world yet until you learn your multiplication tables.
Absolutely,
and,
yes. My parents were very good about that.
Yes. And so you graduate high school. How did you get to Germany?
When I graduated from high school, I wanted to be either a journalist or a special education teacher.
Okay.
As you do.
Interesting. Yes.
And ended up doing my own DTS and starting a degree in early childhood education, but in the YWAM university.
And is this an accredited?
No,
This is a pseudo university.
pretty much yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I learned Montessori.
So where would you have been able to use this degree?
Really,
Private
any
schools?
any private Christian school,
Okay.
or Montessori.
Okay. Which, of course, you know, I just, as an educator, like I cannot stand all that stuff. Like the,
Yes.
you know, university that's not a university in my
Yes.
mind. But the irony for me of all this is you actually are a brilliant person. And
Thank you.
like
Yeah.
well, and
Yeah.
you know, I've known you this long, and you're a theologian, not because you graduated from an accredited school, but because you put, I mean, in many ways you're self-taught. But I also think from knowing not only you guys but other friends of mine who've been involved with YWAM, it attracts a lot of smart people.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because, to me, because in some ways, it's cult. I'll just go ahead and say it. I think it's cultish in some ways. You know, I think the same could be said for other organizations, and you know, there's a certain kind of really smart person who seems to also have this spiritual yearning and this this sincerity about a search, you know, for God and for truth that is particularly vulnerable to and interested in giving their lives to a higher cause, you know, that some of these organizations sort of provide.
Yeah. And you're right. YWAM tends toward the cultish, depending on the location and the program that you're part of. Some programs, and I was either fortunate enough or smart enough to be part of, to spend a lot more time in the ones that were placed a higher emphasis on critical thinking and independence.
But then I wonder if that is fortunate or not, because when you're in some of that, and I experienced this in the college ministry that I was a part of, you know, student mobilization, I would as embedded in it, for my life like you were with YWAM. But spiritually, I was very involved at a very, for sort of formative time.
Yeah, very much.
Another, mean, you look at childhood as a formative time, and then college is certainly a time when you're like exploring your identity and sort of realigning some things and maybe choosing some different things. And, I can't blame any of the choices that I made in college on really my Southern Baptist affiliation, or other than that has sort of prepped me for this. But, I look back now at student mobilization as kind of a whole other level of legalism and sort of radicalism and honestly just crazy. Now, to my way of thinking now, because, and I'm not, going back to whether it's actually fortunate or not, when there's so much good mixed in with crazy stuff, or stuff that you can recognize as cultish or you can recognize as like completely unreasonable, I think, you know the whole story of my marriage, but, I can relate that to my marriage in the sense of when there seems to be, these sort of competing narratives or these competing versions of something, and you want the good to prevail. You want the good to be what is real and true because you're giving so much of your life force to it.
That's true.
Then you can really downplay the bad stuff or the stuff that should be like big red flags.
Especially if you're not personally immersed in that part of it.
Right. And so like I'm thinking about some Bible studies I was in with, some just fantastic people I still really love and respect. Some of them still involved in that organization, and I do not know how. Except that I guess they're just sort of like I was when I was still in my church, where I just thought I have enough, it's a big tent, and I have enough room to kind of do my own thing here. And no organization is perfect, and, no human institution is, blah, blah, blah. And so, it seems like you sort of had that experience in YWAM where you could be yourself or who you thought what you thought you wanted to do spiritually. And there were enough like-minded people and smart people, and you felt like there was enough freedom under this big umbrella that you didn't realize you were in a cult. Or, I don't know.
Well, like you said, I have many friends who are still in YWAM and still doing things that I love and support. And so it's difficult to talk because we feel like when you're saying that something is a cult, that that you're saying that all of everyone who's involved in it is cultish, and that just doesn't. That
it's not true.
It's not true. And I still, honestly, even now, I still stand behind a lot of the things that we did.
Oh, I do too. In
most
my
of
church,
it.
you know.
And I'm able to look back and see that the things that I don't stand behind, I was uncomfortable with even then. It was just like what you said. You see it as, in a way, collateral damage. It's the stuff that doesn't make sense, but it's not at the front of your mind.
But I want to stop there a minute because I'm thinking about the conversation we had on the way up here, and about just some of the things that we're learning in our 50s, that we wish we had known in our 20s or teens, and that we're hoping our kids, have learned from us or certainly earlier than we have. And I think that is part of the tension of being in this place where we are right now and in this process of deconstructing, because like I find myself, obviously, like you were talking about with YWAM, like loving and deeply respecting people who are still in both the Southern Baptist Church and student mobilization, and standing behind many of the things that I, did and believed and was about when I was in those organizations. And so there's I don't know, it's almost like a home that you loved, but you have to leave, but you still look back on it with this like loyalty and this fondness.
Yeah.
But then there's another side of me that, like in the conversation we were having here, that feels, an anger or in a betrayal in a way, a sense of regret that for how those institutions failed me.
Yeah.
And not just me, but others, like the carnage, that is sort of that I'm aware of in people's lives, that I think then that side of me takes over, and I want to just call it out as, a corrupt system, or a cult, or a system that needs to be exposed, and certainly when I think about, like the covering up of, sexual crimes in the Southern Baptist Convention, or things like that there's no question about that corruption, but even just some of the unhealthy like dynamics that are allowed to exist, and the unhealthy like ideas that I picked up that I'm having to just still like sort through and peel off, that I think, I don't know, it's hard to call it out, because you love the people, and you have a trust in like the goodness and their sincerity and their hearts, and that's valid, because also we know, like I know where my heart was, and but I don't know, I'm not sure how to talk about all that exactly, because
it's difficult, and I think in many ways it's part of what's difficult for me is I would never want to say that my parents got us into a cult.
Yes, of course.
That's not, they had the same kinds of intentions that we've been talking about all this time. And they've actually, it was from them that we learned that we all learned critical thinking first.
Yes, same.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. We have very similar experiences in that way. And so you don't want to.
So it's messy.
There's a lot that goes into this. But in a way, we were all we were all shown a bill of sale that they did not. They didn't. I don't know how to say that. Like we were given a deal, and then they changed the parameters of the deal. And that's how I feel about YWAM.
And don't you feel that way about sort of when you start looking at not just YWAM, but like a lot of things, like
very much.
I feel like this has happened, with me a long time ago, but I feel like it's happening like in my area with a lot of people who have trusted in like the Republican Party.
Yeah.
And, voted for the governor, and then she, and then learns is not panning out to be like the, the panacea that that was promised for all the educational ills, and then this prison, it really has opened a lot of people's eyes
in real time
in Franklin County who are just feel like they were sold, some promises that are, it's like the veil's been lifted, and this is just like, well, they're just completely corrupt, and we did not know that.
Yeah.
We believed in the things they were saying. We believed they were going to represent our Christian values. We believed, that they were going to keep big government out of our rural way of life, and instead, they've got their boots on our necks. So, all right, but I digress.
Okay. You had asked about Germany.
How'd you get to Germany?
Right. So, in the course of doing this degree, one of the courses that I did was in Switzerland. Mm-hmm. It was a worldview course, and I went there as a student.
Okay.
And by then, I think I had realized that I was never going to be a preschool teacher. I was far enough into the degree that I just decided to go ahead and finish it. Mm-hmm. But I was not gifted in the classroom. But I did find out that I was gifted in thinking through consequences of beliefs and tracking different beliefs and the effect they had in life. Mm-hmm. And I discovered that at this course in Switzerland. And so I went back to be on staff. And the basic theme of the course is recognizing worldviews and beliefs behind what people say and do, and messages that we put out into the world. And
this is so ironic.
And then understanding the consequences of those beliefs.
It's like they gave you the tools to deconstruct.
They did. They gave me exactly what I needed to deconstruct.
Yes.
And then
you just didn't turn it on.
Exactly. And part of, at the time,
towards
one of the courses,
at the time.
Yes. Yeah. One of the other courses that I was required to do for my degree was at least 3 months of a School of Biblical Studies, which is in all a 9-month course where you study the whole Bible, verse by verse, word by word, and analyze it for what it meant to the people that it was written for at the time. So you take it by the book. What was going on at that time? Mm-hmm. What did the people who lived at that time understand when they heard this for the first time? Mm-hmm. And what consequences did it have in their lives? And then what effect could that have on my life? And
that's some pretty serious Bible literacy.
It is. It is. And then they say that by the time you've done the SBS, as we call it, you will have read through the whole Bible 5 times, and in 9 months. And so I did 4 months of that as part of my degree, just to get through the New Testament.
Okay.
And at the time, I hated it, but I learned a lot. You know me well enough to know that I go kicking and screaming into everything. So, and then I met Torsten.
Okay.
And he is from Germany, and he, by then, he had been working with the School of Biblical Studies for several years, and he came to Switzerland to do the Worldview School.
Yeah.
And we met and were pretty much instant soulmates, if you want to call it that. Just talked about everything under the sun and fell in love. Mm-hmm. And so when my commitment was finished in Switzerland, soon after we met, I moved to Germany to see if this relationship would work out. And you know the end of that. We got married and had 3 beautiful children,
Mm-hmm.
and that was 25 years ago.
Yeah.
So, and he was the pull to Germany, though.
Okay.
He had just started a new job there, and I was finishing off a commitment somewhere else. So it made sense for me to move to Germany.
And you guys lived in a castle.
We, at first, yes, we both lived in a castle. And then when we got married, we moved into an apartment in the village and worked in the castle.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So I want to get to the story of Leah, because I think, at least for me as your friend and my understanding, you know, there are things all along the way that kind of didn't quite sit with you, like the fake speaking in tongues and the,
Yeah.
you know, other thing, the corruption at the school and the, you know, just different issues that came along. But, you know, you correct me if I'm wrong, it seems like the beginning of the end, or the big fracture,
Yeah.
really started or came was Leah.
Yeah. And there are several things all mixed up together.
Yeah. So tell that
But-
story, or talk about that.
We had been in Germany for several years by that point. Had young children, but all 3 were born. And Torsten was working with the SBS, and I was working with a worldview school in Germany. And we were involved with the leadership, but we were not in a leadership position.
Okay.
And what happened first was that some friends of ours were accused of misusing power by some other people who we were less close to, but still close to.
Okay.
And we were involved, I was especially involved in trying to basically hold the community together while figuring out the merits or otherwise of
And
the
how big was
accusations.
that community?
That was about 60 people
Okay.
with, satellites coming and going and students and stuff. And around the same time, a young woman came to be in the Worldview School from the States, and she and I hit it off right away.
Okay.
Just had a really good time together, laughed a lot. And while she was there, she started having some pain. And so she would go to the doctor and try and figure out what was going on. And in the end, it turned out to be cancer.
She's like 20?
She was 28.
28. Okay.
And it was metastatic melanoma and moved very quickly. She was living in the top floor of the castle at the time, and the tumor that made it obvious was in her hip area, and so she was no longer able to climb the stairs to her room. And I happened to be the one that took her to the doctor and took her home with me for dinner afterwards, and just said, Leah, you can't make it to your room anymore. And she ended up in a bed in our house. And so over the next couple of months, Torsten and I and two of our close friends were the main people helping her, going to the hospital with her, going to doctor's appointments, making sure that somebody was there to translate for her, and being her support as she went through treatment. And we were her main caregivers until she went home to the Chicago area 10 days before she died. and there was a lot in that where the community was in some ways coming around us and around her, and in some ways it was difficult to be part of that community because people would come and pray for her, to pray for her healing, but she would feel guilty because they would leave and she wouldn't be healed. And so there was a certain attitude in some areas of the church that if God's not healing you, it's because you don't have the faith. And she had been raised in that. And to a certain extent, not from my parents, but from others around us, I had been raised in that. And so people would come and pray for her and then leave, and she would feel guilty. And that was so difficult to see.
Mm-hmm.
And when her mother came, finally, she was unable to even acknowledge that there was cancer in Leah's body, because if she acknowledged it, she believed that God wouldn't heal. And so there's a certain, it was a time that it was so obvious, the fear that there was of death, and the fear of doing the wrong thing because then God wouldn't come through for you. And it was devastating to us, and of course to Leah, but also to all of us who were around her. Her friends would come from all over the world to see her and not know how to handle this.
Mm-hmm.
And Torsten really said it best. Like, what are we in this for if we're going to be afraid of dying?
Mm.
And so the people who were honest about her illness were the people who weren't Christians. I mean, besides, of course, the core group.
Mm-hmm.
And that was, it was shocking. Like we all along, we had talked often, Torsten and I and our closer friends, about how we felt like the church was following side quests instead of really following what was in the Bible, and our frustration with that. But that was kind of very jarring to go through this and never have it acknowledged that she was from the side of so many of the Christians around us, that she was dying. And it was tragic. It was awful. None of us wanted it to be true, but it was the truth.
Yes.
And
it's like magical thinking.
yes.
It's like
yes.
complete denial of
Complete
reality.
Yes. And of course,
And that's motivated by fear.
by fear
That if we say the truth, then God's gonna
yes,
not.
God's not going to. It's going to show that we don't have faith for healing,
Right.
and then God won't heal. And it was just so far from everything that was true
Mm-hmm.
in the world around us. And so, there was a break there, and the conflict that was going on at the same time, also meant that while the community was across the board concerned, and they were doing their best to be very supportive, but also the community would get together to pray for Leah without her there, but they had to be careful that they didn't mix the factions, which was just frustrating. Especially, we if we talked about our values and our purpose, then this was very
Just so
against every
stupid.
value that we held
Yes.
as community. And
So what did you do with all that once Leah left and went home and passed away?
We redoubled our efforts. We decided, and this was part of a long thing that started before this, but we thought, well, people just don't know their Bible. And so we just need to try harder, find different ways to get people more interested in knowing the Bible. And so that was when Torsten and a good friend of ours from Australia got together and developed a short course called The Missing Link, where we would basically read and present the Old Testament in 4 weeks. I think it was 4 weeks. And because one of our ideas was, well, people are so focused on the New Testament, and but the New Testament really only has context if you know the Old Testament. And so we started offering this course. And it was great. It was fun, but it was really came out of that.
So what you're trying to do at this point is you're not at all ready to rethink like your whole life and what are we doing here, but you're trying to find a way that you can stay in this organization, and you're still believing in it. You're just believing like you want to be the change that it needs.
Exactly.
Right?
We really were steeped in this belief that you can only change something from the inside.
Yes. Oh yeah. Yeah.
And so we were going to be that change. Yeah.
Yes. Be the change you want to see in the world.
Exactly.
Yeah, of course.
And so if it's not working, you try something new.
Right.
But you stay in it.
You're so invested.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we were doing those things. We were also working on The Story, which was a 1-week thing.
Yes, I remember that.
Yeah. And that was about just a basic Bible overview. This is how it all holds together. This is the same story from the beginning to the end. And again, it was fun, and it was inspiring, and it was changing individuals.
Yeah.
But it wasn't changing the system. But at the same time, we felt like we were still trying to hold up these values that we thought were the Christian values or the YWAM values. And that was what brought us to Arkansas.
Okay. That was what I was going to ask you is how do you get to Ozark?
We hit a point where we felt like it was time to leave Germany. And a lot of that had to do with Leah and all the conflict and things like that.
Just needed a reset.
Yeah. But we also felt like it was time for our kids, especially the older ones, to have some experience in their other culture. And so we started looking in the States for things that we could be involved in. And one of the places that needed people to lead their School of Biblical Studies was Ozark, Arkansas. And so we landed here.
Yep.
And started doing the School of Biblical Studies, the Missing Link, and the Story.
Yes.
And really loved some of the work we did. And a lot of the people that we worked with. But we found that in the states in general, the SBS had more of a flavor of following a curriculum instead of discovering what the Bible says for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a hard thing to know how to deal with.
So what year was it when you guys moved?
2013.
2013. All right. So let's fast forward just a little bit.
Okay.
What would you say, how would you sort of summarize your time in Ozark, coming from Germany, getting settled there, working in that ministry, teaching those classes that were good, really loving some of the people you were working with, to the point of deciding to leave YWAM? What happened?
Well, I studied the Old Testament. That was a huge part of what happened.
Okay.
During the move,
Mm-hmm.
I spent I did independent studies and finished the SBS myself,
Okay.
which meant that I was by myself studying the Old Testament, and the prophets were especially devastating because all the things that Israel was judged for in the prophets were the things that I could see happening in the church. The evangelical church, especially in the States.
Mm-hmm.
The nationalism, the abuse of foreigners, and
Because 2013 to 2016, this is the rise of Trump. And,
yes, yes, and some of that had bothered me before.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where I'm going to talk more about me and not about Torsten. He's got a different story.
Okay.
But for me, the prophets were like, oh, damn. We're in trouble.
I think it's so,
Yeah.
it must have been so interesting to come from Germany to the States.
Yeah.
For many reasons. I mean, just absorbing the history and culture of Germany and sort of living that. And then also coming back home and having sort of fresh eyes. I feel like a lot of us were sort of like a frog in water that gets turned up and turned up. And this phenomenon is kind of upon us before we realize, some of us, what is happening.
Yeah.
But you must have, you had left the States. It'd been years.
Yes.
And then you come back, and these things must have kind of been in your face.
Oh, yeah, very much. It was,
And then that corresponds with you studying the Old Testament, and
yes,
kind of a watershed moment or a bombshell.
Yes. Exactly. It was the perfect storm in a way. And so things like honor guards in church
Yes.
were like, wait, what?
Interesting.
Because and some of that is the German influence.
Yeah.
And there were just many attitudes that were really worrying at the time, and we tried to speak to those. But there wasn't always successful, and as Trump came on the scene, we were screaming. I was very upset by the whole thing, but felt like what we were told to do was stay in the Bible. Stay in your lane. Don't talk to politics.
Okay.
Unless you have the same view as we do.
Okay. Which was
at that time more along the lines of, well, Trump is a terrible person, but he's going to do good things.
he's gonna like
He's going
espouse
to,
our values
yes.
and pick judges that will support
Yes.
things that Christians
Yes.
care about. Okay.
And a lot of it was abortion and guns.
Yeah.
And which to me was absurd, to be honest. Because how can you call yourself pro-life and call yourself pro-gun? Especially if you're making no bones about the fact that the gun isn't for hunting animals. It's for defending yourself against human beings. And that was just, to me, that was cognitive dissonance. That was, and contrary to what I saw in the Bible.
Yes. Yeah.
And then all the other pro-life
But the Bible's
things.
being used to justify these things.
Yes,
in
exactly.
the mainstream churches.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then, some of the other pro-life things where you're pro-life, but you're against birth control. Like, how does that work? People, married people use birth control because it's expensive to raise kids. And that there was less and less funding for foster care or for social workers who would take care of foster children.
Yes.
At the same time as there's people out there, the same people want to ban abortions. So a lot of this was cognitive dissonance that then there was Trump.
So it's interesting just to kind of connect some of these dots. You're studying the Old Testament, particularly the prophets, and you're moving back to the States. You're seeing the rise of Trump. You're seeing some disturbing sort of tendencies in the church, the evangelical church, and that is all just really creating a dissonance for you, and causing you to question, like, where's all this going? What's this mean? And what's my place in it?
Yeah. And another aspect of it was probably also realizing that there was so much racism in the church.
Okay.
That was something that I had hidden from myself for.
Where did you see that?
Talking with different people.
Okay.
Who would just talk about how it felt to them to walk into some of the churchy spaces as people of a different race than most of the people there. And then that was the era when there was so much defiance about displaying and carrying a Confederate flag. And you and I saw it there in church, in the church that we went to together.
Yes.
And that was so jarring for me because I don't care what it means to you. If it's hurtful to somebody else, just don't do it.
Right. Some of those things just seem so simple.
Yeah. Yeah, and it felt...
It wouldn't filter through, like, the Christian worldview that we hold.
And so it felt like, okay, no, that is racism. Where were we?
Well, because, like, WWJD, if you're trying to follow Jesus and you run some of these questions through there, like, certainly there were hills Jesus was willing to die on, right, both figuratively and literally, but, there were things that mattered to him. But, I mean, we shared this as we walked. it's just this mystification with the things that seem to be important to evangelicals that do not seem to jive with what I mean, for me, it was even like, frankly, what those same evangelical traditions had instilled in me.
Yes.
So,
You're
it's
supposed to
not that
be-
Jesus was wimpy and would just like lay down any flag, but he certainly wouldn't wouldn't carry a Confederate flag that's going to hurt other people, because it just wouldn't be important.
Well-
it wouldn't be, nothing was more important than loving
He was
those people.
very clearly and distinctly anti-nationalistic. His beef, his hills that he was willing to die on, had to do with the power of the religious leaders.
Yes.
And the oppression of the people that they were at least supporting, if not authoring.
Yes.
And
I mean, those are the tables he flipped over.
exactly, that's the tables he flipped over. It's the rebukes that
The ones he called out.
Yeah, he sat and talked at a well with a Samaritan woman. He wasn't supposed to even acknowledge that she existed. His parable of the Good Samaritan was like today if you would tell a parable about a megachurch pastor and a missionary passing somebody by, and then a trans woman comes and takes care of them.
Yes.
And that happens every day in America.
Of course. Yes.
And so that's the kind of thing that we've talked about so much, and that has been so disturbing. It's like the church has made enemies of the very people that we need to be loving.
So, was it dramatic leaving YWAM? What did it mean for you guys to leave?
Well, it meant that to leave YWAM, we walked away from our careers. We walked away from everything we'd given our lives to up until that point. Everything we knew how to do, more or less. We loved teaching and loved mentoring young people.
It was your spiritual home.
It was our
identity.
Yeah, it was our friends. I mean, happily, you and I were friends by then, and that made a huge difference for me.
Yeah, me too.
But it meant letting go of nearly every dream we'd had for our lives.
Which leaving my church was like that, but it wasn't as extreme because I had a job outside and, had, there was a lot of my identities certainly wrapped up in my church home, but it wasn't everything.
Yeah.
And it was.
It very much.
So then
we were really fortunate to have my whole family was out of YWAM by then, and so there was that.
Yes. Yes.
And that was a huge gift.
And you sort of since then, it's kind of like it just sort of stripped everything and you just sort of started over with, okay, I'm getting rid of all that. Like what's left? What do I believe now? And how do you answer that question? Like, where are you now?
I am at a place that I feel is really good for me, but it's hard to describe.
Yeah, I remember you at some point telling me that you weren't even comfortable calling yourself a Christian.
Yeah, and that holds true today.
Yeah. Well, kind of talk about that a little bit, like why not, and maybe that's a good launching point for where you are now.
I mean, you know that I tried to stick with the church for a few years.
Yes.
After leaving YWAM. We went to church together.
Yes.
And
I was trying to stick with it too.
yeah, exactly. We were holding each other up in many ways. And that was good. It would have been too much all at once. But eventually I realized that it was just making me angry.
Yeah.
I was just getting more and more resentful of the things that I was hearing and the people who didn't deserve that.
Yeah.
And so I felt like it was time to just lay it down. I think if God is real and loving, then he's bigger than any doubts. He, she, they. And they are big enough that they're not threatened by my decision to walk away from the church. And so I decided to just lay it down, leave it behind, and see what would in a way float to the surface. And that's kind of where I've been. Just waiting to see if there's anything that can be defined or named. And for a while, that was really uncomfortable to not be able to say, this is my belief system in a word.
Yes.
Because I had just identified as Christian.
Well, and you're trained in YWAM, and I certainly was, in my tradition, to be able to articulate it.
Yes.
Yeah. Which it's not a bad thing. We do need to be able to articulate what we believe.
Absolutely.
But it's also sort of it's sort of limiting. It's sort of putting a box around something that's too big for a box.
Yeah, exactly. And I find now when I look at what I believe, my values honestly haven't changed.
No.
Even the way I look at the Bible hasn't changed. What's changed is that I am not under pressure to perform. And I'm not putting anybody else under pressure to perform. And I think that is a healthy place to be. I think that so much of what I was steeped in was had nothing to do with what's actually in the Bible. But regardless, I was just under constant pressure. What came out is that I was burnt out, and it was in many ways what was going through my head all the time.
Yes.
And so it's hard to separate that and find out, okay, how much of this was things that people put on me, and how much of it was something that someone said when I was 4 and stuck with me for my whole life.
Right.
But the end result is that for me, I'm going back now to, I can't escape the Bible. It's in here.
Right. Yeah.
I can't escape the need to analyze all of the things going on around me and have opinions about it.
Yeah.
And so now I'm writing and what's coming out is the Bible.
Yes, it's true. Because I read your Substack faithfully,
Which-
religiously.
Thank you.
Well, it's so good.
Yeah. It's funny to say I'm not a Christian and most of what I write about is the Bible.
Yeah.
But I do not feel that I can identify as a Christian for as long as what's being shown to the world around me as Christian is the antithesis of what I actually believe. And so,
Well, we've talked about this. I can remember. I remember a particular walk when we were. For some reason, we were downtown walking around the track, but I remember talking to you about this little book I had read on tyranny by Timothy Snyder. And I was kind of on this crusade, which I'm still on, as a writer and a teacher. I had read where Snyder had said something about not allowing language to be co-opted. You know,
Yes,
and so,
I remember this conversation.
So yes, and I remember talking to you about how, well, you know, I'm still going to call myself a Christian because I'm not going to allow somebody else to define that for me, and I'm gonna sort of, you know, take that bull by the horns and say, you know, well, this may be what a Christian is to you, or you may, like, you know, have this version of Christianity, but here's what it means to me, and when I say I'm a Christian, here's what I believe. And you were just, and I kind of do that with, like, patriot, American.
Yeah.
I do it with Southern and even hillbilly, you know, because that's
Yes, of course you
my
do.
mascot in Ozark. And just kind of, you know, ornery, I guess, or stubborn enough to be like, no, that's not what that means, you know, and I'm not ceding that. I'm not ceding the meaning of that word to the haters. And I remember you were just like, yeah, I'm out. You're like, that's fine. That's good. Just go ahead and do that. But for me, I'm just out for now. And so in my mind, obviously, like, what Christian means to me, and you probably know the literal, you know, Greek.
Oh, no.
But doesn't it mean, like, imitator of Christ or little Christ?
Pretty much, yeah.
And it's someone who follows the examples of Jesus. And so, to me, what that looks like is what our shared values are, you know, and that's what I want Christian to mean. You know, that's what I want when I say I'm a Christian. That's what I want people to think of, not, you know, somebody who's gonna, you know, do all the things that Christians have a bad reputation for. You know, I teach, I talk about this actually in my classes about what words mean.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about how they got those meanings, and it's really interesting to do with all kinds of different words. But it has been interesting to me over the last several years. One of the words I'll throw out is Christian, and I'll ask my students, you know, like, what's that mean to you? And you'll have a few, you know, I guess, who are sincere, like, about their own beliefs, and they will, you know, they'll say kind of the same stuff, you know, that we're saying about, you know, being a follower of Jesus. And then I'm sad to say, really the majority of my students who speak up are not the examples of this sort of Christian nationalists themselves, but they are people who say that's what a Christian is to them. Mm-hmm. And they're very, you know, put off by it.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
And so I get it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I'm never going to tell you or anybody else that you shouldn't call yourself that. Mm-hmm. I've just found that it's set my mind at rest to let go of the label. And like I said, just to see what comes out. One of the early scriptures that I was taught was Psalm 1. Blessed is the man that doesn't walk in the counsel of the wicked, or stand in the way of sinners, or sit in the seat of mockers, but his delight is in the law of the Lord. And on that law he meditates day and night. He's like a tree planted by streams of water.
Yes.
Yields its fruit in season. And I always wanted to be that tree. And I guess my attitude is, after all these years, if that tree isn't strong and producing fruit, no matter what label it is, then there's no point to it anyway. So that's, I think, where I am. Either the fruit is good or bad, but I need to let go of my own labels. And again, I want to say again, I respect that about you. And I have so many friends who are very much active in the church and who I respect in their pursuits and their beliefs, and I'm not trying to sell anybody on my decision. I just don't think everybody.
It's just personal.
Yeah.
And it's a label that you needed to to shed.
Yes.
Yeah. I love that about the tree, though.
Yeah.
Because that to me really does exemplify you, the way and the way that I see you,
Thank you.
is a really strong tree. And, that I like to sit under and, learn from, and just, to carry the metaphor further, I think I think people are safe with you and sort of, shaded by things that burn, shaded by, I feel that way just as your friend, just safe. And, and that it, your heart towards the world, and this is, probably one of the reasons I would, in my mind, call you a Christian, is that it's, you're there's a rest there. There's a truth, a purity, an honesty, and kind of I think removing these labels is just, for you, like, just no facade. And
But I feel the same about you.
Yeah.
With or without the labels.
Right.
I feel like in a way we've been so privileged to cultivate that further with each other.
Definitely.
To just be, in a way, each other's support as we learned more of that.
Yes. Well, I hope that we'll just continue doing that forever. And I really appreciate you being here today and just sharing this journey. Something I have found in writing my columns and interacting with people is there are a lot more people than maybe it seems, or maybe than we would realize, who who are asking some of these questions and somewhere along this journey themselves, and speaking about it, telling our stories gives other people the courage, to ask some of those questions. And I think ultimately, here I go with my Christian language, but ultimately I think it serves, the kingdom of God, because it produces this more authentic sort of faith that is not, a performance. And so I have really wanted to help sort of ease that journey for people, or help them not feel so alone.
Yeah.
And that's definitely, for me, something our friendship does in this world is just know we're walking through it together.
Yes.
So.
Yeah. And you've been an amazing sounding board for me as I started writing and
well, I
getting
want
that
you
out.
to get, before we close up, give your, and we'll share this on the website, but give the address to your Substack, or how do people find your writing?
If you go to Substack and you look up Corrie Radtke.
Okay, spell that.
Corrie Radke.
Okay, Corrie Radtke on Substack.
On Substack.
And it's great stuff. And it's free for now.
It
right?
is free. It's I so far I'm doing free subscriptions.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And thank you for being here. We appreciate you listening, and hope you'll come back.